Hey everybody, welcome to the Sharon Jesus podcast, where we discuss, encourage, break down, and share what it looks like to live for Christ in every aspect. I'm your host, Reese, and we have a special episode today, all the way from Houston, Texas, technically Missouri City if you're familiar with the area. But joining me today is one of my greatest friends of all time, Sharon Melanson.
What's up? Nice to be here.
And Kelsey Ramsey.
What's up?
And if you're from Sharon Church, you're going to know a lot about these people. But if not, you're definitely going to know a lot about us by the end of this episode. And the title of today's episode, and I know you've seen it already, is the story behind Sharon Worship. And if you know any of us three, you know that's a big part of our lives and a big part of our hearts. In our drive and our ministry. So we want to talk about the story behind Sharon Worship. And I just introduced to you Shawn Melanson, and he is from Hamburg, Arkansas. And Shawn, how old were you when we met?
I think I was four.
Four?
When y'all moved to Hamburg.
We moved to Hamburg. My dad was the pastor of Promised Land. And in this first segment, that's kind of where we want to start, is in Promised Land, when worship kind of came a big part of my life and kind of the direction that God was leading me. And so in this first segment, we want to talk about, I guess, the first time. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember how old I was. Were you in the youth group the first night we ever did worship? Was it upstairs?
Yes, we were upstairs in the fellowship hall. That's where our youth met, on those couches. And
yeah,
I remember whenever you first tried to start leading worship and trying to get...
I did not play guitar.
No, you were trying to get us off of using, was it I Sing Worship?
Yeah, it was from the iPad.
Tracks.
Yep.
And you had that cajon, and you just played the cajon and sang.
Yes.
There's no guitar.
We had one of my friends who I played basketball with, Braden Berry. Mm-hmm. He played guitar.
Yes.
And I played the cajon. I had a boom mic stand, and I sang from that boom mic. And
it was horrible.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was horrible.
Looking back on it, I remember I remember when I first learned to play guitar. I was probably 14 at the time, when we first started worship at Promised Land. And I learned how to play How Great Is Our God. And I figured out that those 4 chords that I could play with How Great Is Our God, I could play with another worship song, and then so on and so forth, the domino effect, and I figured it out. But so we started leading worship on Wednesday nights. It was interesting. I'm surprised Trey let us do it. Trey Emery was our youth pastor at the time. So
bad.
Trey, if you're listening to this, thanks a lot, man. You were kind of the kickstart to the worship scene.
And back then, but whenever we first started, it was just you. No one else had any part in it.
Right.
You just kind of led worship, and it started from then on, just leading on Wednesday nights.
Which, kudos to Trey, because he did encourage it a lot, because he really wanted it. It's like some live worship in the youth. Because we had a decent-sized youth group, 30, 40 kids at the time, and he really wanted just, one good song before the message. Kind of had a simple Wednesday night. And that led, after that, I taught Allie how to play those 4 chords on the piano. And so, long time goes on, and we end up inheriting this little old building next to the church, and we end up remodeling the whole thing, gutting it. So we had our own little youth building. We got sound and everything set up there, projector screen. And so we kind of have like a youth praise band. And so, like, I was playing guitar. Braden and Bryson, they were brothers. They were playing guitar too, and Allie was playing piano. We had one of my other best friends, Zach. He played the drums at the time. And so we kind of had like a youth praise band.
And at that time, I was the sound guy.
Yes. So Shawn, I was teaching Shawn how to just run lyrics on the little computer. And
we had that little 8-channel, it wasn't a soundboard, but it was that little 8-channel box that we had.
It was like
up.
it
was
box
just a mixer.
Yeah. And if y'all can hear the sounds behind us, excuse us. We're in a kitchen, so we're just doing this on the fly. But this is a lot of fun. And so we kind of doing worship on Wednesday nights and kind of getting things going. And we get the opportunity to lead one song every Sunday. And so my dad asked us, for a long time, they just did hymns only. And he said, hey, I'd love for the little worship team or sometimes just you and the piano. And I remember Dina, if she ever listens to this, thank you so much for all the time you spent with me on Sunday mornings going through music. But we would do one song during the offering, and that was a really neat experience. And that's kind of what we did. We did Wednesday nights, and we did one song on Sunday mornings.
And it started, well, before we even started doing worship at all, it was just we had that Sunday nights. It was youth. The youth led it.
Yeah, that was something
and
cool.
You would
Promised
lead
Land
music
did.
for lead us in hymns and stuff. And starting out, a actual contemporary worship song, it was just once a month.
Yeah.
On like the fourth Sunday or something.
Yeah.
And then we got to doing it during the offering. You would sing and play the guitar with Miss Dina during the offering on Sunday mornings.
On Sunday nights, we had a youth, and a lot of times it was me, but sometimes it was older kids that were before me, but they would lead the hymns, and then we'd do the offering, we'd do the welcome, and that was every Sunday night too.
Yeah.
Like, it was always like that. And so that was really cool. And I want to talk about, before we take a break and move on to like really when Sharon Worship kind of became the heart, obviously Sharon Worship, meaning Sharon Church, where it started all. But I kind of wanted to set the scene, because like how Sean's included now and Allie's included, and how people have come in and out of Sharon Worship that have been a part of it way before Sharon was a thing. Before we take a break, I want to talk about the dynamic of Promised Land and like leaving Promised Land. And when I say that, like the dynamic, I mean like just where everyone was at. I think the
culture changed.
Yeah, we led worship on Wednesday night. We led worship every Wednesday night, and I think we were there. I can't put an exact date on it, but I say 3 years we were in that youth building with like a full band.
Before y'all left.
Yeah, before we left. We were doing full out worship for 3 years, and kind of just rocking and rolling. And sometimes we got to where we were having church over there on Sunday nights, and I think it was just really special sometimes seeing just the older generation really being open to what the young people thrived on. Mm-hmm. And it's not that we were trying to force them into that type of worship atmosphere or that type of new music or drums or that kind of thing, but it's just what the kids loved and what they connected with. And I think that was just something cool to see at Promised Land.
I feel like right before y'all left, I feel like more of the elder community at Promised Land started to understand that this was worship too. Yeah, that's good. It's not only hymns, but a new song is still worship. And I feel like they started to understand that then, right before y'all left.
That's good. And to give context, Promised Land is, for someone who doesn't know where Promised Land's at, is in, we said earlier, Hamburg, Arkansas, but Promised Land Church was 10 miles outside of Hamburg in the middle of the country. Like, and we were a big church for that area. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of like, small town, big church, and, just lots of people, lots of opinions. But, man, we had an awesome youth group, awesome, sports. We did Upward Basketball, awesome Awana ministry, just everything about Promised Land in our 10 years being there was just awesome. I can't speak negative about Promised Land one bit, because we had so many awesome people that loved on us in our time there. And even when we left, my dad, him being the reason we moved to Benton, just at peace, everything was, and we were confident in the future of Promised Land when we left. And just, I can't speak highly enough. And so when we left, you were still there. You were still in school. Mm-hmm. You would have been 10th grade.
I was in 9th grade.
9th grade, going into 10th. Mm-hmm. And so...
Because Allie spent the beginning of her freshman year at Hamburg.
Yes.
And then y'all moved that fall.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We moved September. And so we're going to take a break and talk about... When we come back, we're going to talk about, the journey of Sharon Worship, how it started, what it looks like now, and just all the exciting things. I mean, what we're doing now is like the dream and the ideas of Sharon Worship. Like we're sitting in a kitchen and I haven't said thanks to Miss Rose, who's hosting us this week. We're leading worship at a revival in Missouri City at Heritage Baptist Church, and thanks to her, we're here leading worship, and that's kind of the dream behind that. So yeah, we'll talk about the journey of Sharon Worship right when we come back. All right, welcome back to the Sharon Jesus podcast. We're back talking about the story behind Sharon Worship. And again, we're in Houston, Texas. And if you're familiar with the area, technically we're in Missouri City, Texas. And thank you to Miss Rose. We're staying with her. She's hosting us in her home. We're so thankful for that. We're recording in her kitchen at the dining room table. So if you hear any dishwasher sounds or trash cans, or she doesn't have any animals, but if you hear animals, that should probably concern us. And so we're excited about this second segment because we're really about to dive in on the title of this episode, Story Behind Sharon Worship. And Miss Kelsey, was quiet the whole first segment.
For once.
Yeah. This is where Kelsey really comes in. So Story Behind Sharon Worship, we talked about worship starting, kind of cultivating in our lives, mine and Sean in particular, in our younger high school age, and really starting with live worship and learning and growing in that area. So we moved to Benton, our family, the Reese family does, and I meet our youth pastor Josh Robertson at the time. If you're listening to this, hey, thank you for all that you did for us, Sharon Worship, but also the Reese family in general. And I remember Kelsey leads worship with us. She's a vocalist who's been with Sharon Worship since the beginning. She's the other half of the brain of the idea and the heart behind Sharon Worship. But our first Wednesday night was the beginning of the school year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
of our senior year.
Yes, of mine and Kelsey's senior year. We graduated in 2016. It was the beginning of our senior year. Our first Wednesday night. It was really simple. Josh actually wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Jeff was doing the devotion that night, Jeff Holsizer. And Josh just asked me to lead a song with just my guitar, and so I did. And then so that turned into, he's like, hey, you do a good job. Let's just do worship on Wednesday nights, and you just play a song or two. And I was like, okay, cool. And so in that first few weeks, I got to know everybody, and everybody was cool with it. And so we start leading. We start doing a song or two on Wednesday nights. It's just really simple. Josh liked it simple, so we just kind of did most of the time one song, sometimes two, and that turned into getting Kelsey involved. Kelsey started singing, and of course Allie at the time was still playing the piano. We had other people involved, and Jeff was incorporating a youth choir, and so we were kind of just trying this and trying that, and we were kind of new. And at Sharon, there was a lot more opportunities to and ways to try to get people involved. And so I honestly, when I think about it, I don't remember the first time we talked about. I do.
Oh, I vividly remember it.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay,
it was May.
Take off.
May of our senior year, so we were about to graduate, and we had Zach, who was from Promised Land, came into town, and we were all just playing music up at the church. And all of a sudden, we're sitting there, and we're like, this would be so fun to do, just as a ministry, because our time in the youth group was about to be over. And we're like, okay, so what does this look like? And it started just this conversation of, could we make this something we do, other than on Wednesday nights? Could this be something that could grow? And I remember we were walking back to the car, and I think I was talking to Allie. I want to say it was Allie. And I said, it's crazy because God has always, laid ministry on my heart, but I didn't know to what capacity. And I looked at her and I said, what if this is it? And, Sharon Worship at this point was nothing. It was just... Right. It hadn't,
just some best friends who played worship music together.
Right. We just played together on Wednesdays. And I remember I asked her, I was like, what if that's it? And, is more of a just curiosity, but then just to look back and see where God took that
And just to take y'all to like where our like mindset was behind is like we saw it as an avenue. Like you see churches who have like traveling, who have worship teams who travel and everything, and like on a much larger scale. But we saw like a bigger need because I think it was like we got asked one time to lead worship at this little bitty Wednesday night thing, like me, Kelsey, and Allie. I think we went and did it. And we were like, you know, there's this huge need just in the state of Arkansas of like churches who wanted like live worship at their little, you know, youth retreats or event weekends or, you know, so on and so forth, all the way up to church camp.
Right.
And we were like, you know, they're always calling in these people we've never heard of. And like, not that they know of us, but like, you know, that's just a role we could fill as like a worship team that's like local. And so that was kind of like the dream behind it, was like we wanted to be a worship team that was local. We could like really connect with the students of any church we would go to and so on and so forth. And that was like what started it all, was like.
I think it was.
And you did it for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the time it was for free or for a meal.
To talk about that, yeah. When we first started, we were doing... I remember our first, I think, official Sharon Worship gig was a back-to-school rally at Bismarck High School.
Bandstands.
In the bandstands was where we played from. There's probably like 50, 80 kids there. I don't know. It wasn't that many. And, I mean, we were doing stuff for like $20 a piece. Like, wasn't even paying for gas. We just wanted to play music.
Yeah.
Like, we just wanted to lead worship.
We were literally like, pay for our meal, we'll be there.
Yeah.
I mean, wherever.
A few times it wasn't like a full band set, like just a box cajon and keys. And we were like, if you pay for our supper, we'll drive 2 hours and come lead worship for y'all. And so when we first started, in the first like 2 years, this was early 2016, or late 2016, I don't remember. We probably, in the first 2 or 3 years, we were playing all the time.
Yeah.
Little stuff, but all the time.
Yeah. I mean, you think of, we started in the beginning of September of 2016. That was our bandstands, back to school bash. And then within that next month, we had like 3 or 4 gigs because we did baseball fields in DeWitt. And then we did the 5th quarter back at Bismarck. And then we did a few little youth events, like little ones.
We did some winter retreats.
Right.
Winter retreats and some church camps. Churches we had never met before. Never met the youth pastors. We were just getting connected. Trying to think some other. We did some youth revivals in Sheridan.
Yeah.
At the time.
We did in Oklahoma. We
played in a basketball gym in Oklahoma. Golly.
Pretty much every sport you can think of, we played on the field. We played somewhere in the vicinity.
We haven't been on the football field, but we've been in the bandstands, which was where we should have been probably. So thankfully we were there. And so, so we were gigging, and that was really our role. Was like we led on Wednesday nights, and all this stuff was on the weekends. So we always did this stuff on the weekends.
I was driving from Conway
You were going to school, yep. We never really were heavily involved in Sunday morning worship. So we could miss Sundays sometimes. Well, I say sometimes, really anytime we wanted to, because we weren't heavily involved really in Sunday morning worship at Sharon Church at the time. And so on and so forth. And then Jeff Holsizer, our music pastor at the time, kudos to him if you're listening to this, he allowed us at one point, I don't remember when, to start leading once a month on Sunday morning. And so we start leading on Sunday mornings once a month, and people really enjoyed it because it just kind of gave a different mix. And we started doing that for a while. And then somewhere in the mix, Josh Robertson allowed us to lead worship at Next Camp, which is a camp we all grew up to. And during this time, it was going to be like our biggest event, so we were like super excited. We had to we really prepared for it. We put a lot of effort into it. And also during this time, Sean, who's sitting over here next to us, was at Promised Land. He moved to Benton.
And that first year y'all played Next Camp. See, those after you moved, I mean, we just kind of lost touch. I mean, I didn't talk to any of y'all, you or Allie. And that
you were
first
still
year,
finishing up high school.
Yes,
too.
and I finished up high school, gave my life to ministry, was going to go to Cabby in Denton, and getting ready to move. We went to Next Camp. That was the first time that I've heard y'all play as a band. And it was really amazing compared to, I mean, I grew up listening to hymns my whole life, and once y'all left, there wasn't really much worship anymore. Well, hymns are worship. Don't let me say that. But it wasn't the same as it was before you left. And once I moved up there, that's when I started to slowly get involved, mainly just playing the cajon or the box. Yeah. And it was just a really good, really different experience for me after I moved and trying to get into an apartment and really getting involved at Sharon. And that was the time. We still led only once a month, I think, on Sundays. But that Sundays and Wednesdays is where I started to get involved with what Sharon Worship is today.
Right. And so you move up here, and you're in seminary, you're working, and you move home for a short period of time. Yeah. And you work down there, but you still come up once on the weekends. I would drive up
every weekend, 2.5 hours.
For seminary. And he played with us on Sundays. And so when we played, and now he's back living in Benton. Me and Sean are living together in an apartment, and so he's fully dove head first and into all of it again, and we're like back in the saddle, rocking and rolling. And so we're leading once a month on Sundays, and time goes on, and people really enjoy it. Jeff Holsizer ends up going to work secular, and he's also leading worship at a different church, Spring Hill Missionary Baptist Church. Whoop to DJ Mansfield, who's a youth pastor there. And we are the only ones who were asked if y'all would lead every week. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, yeah, we will. No one was ever like so I would consider myself the worship leader, but I don't sing every song on Sunday. Yeah. I don't lead it. It's so what's been the cool part about all of this when it comes full circle is like Sharon Worship has never been, a certain group of people. Right. I could pick out a core group of people. Mm-hmm. Of course I could, but sometimes we've had people come play with us that only played with us at one gig. Right. And Sean, in the midst of all of this, I really need somebody to play bass. And so I give him the bass. I was like, here's 4 chords. And you just pick it up and take off. And so Sean's like our dominant bass player. And then a huge thanks to Cole because he works hard and he learns other instruments. And we try to get a ton of people involved. Yeah. And so the beauty of like Sharon Worship now is that it's a church, Sharon Church. It's a church who leads worship every week. It's not a specific team. It's not a specific set of people. It's not myself or Kelsey. Even though we're dominant people who lead on Sunday, but like we have some amazing volunteers who make Sunday happen. Right. And there's some people I would even take to go lead worship with us. Like this week in Houston, I would take them. If I could, I would bring them with us if their job allowed them to come lead worship all week because they're that good. Right. Like, we have some awesome volunteers. Taylor's sister, Kelsey, is one.
Opposite. Kelsey's sister, Taylor.
Kelsey's sister, Taylor. Goodness. I was thinking Taylor, and I just said her name first. She's one, and, like, Tommy Thompson, thinking of him. Other people like Lindsay Crowder, Brent Bennett. And there's so many more. I could sit here, and I have a list on my phone of all the people who serve, and I could read it off, but that would take a long time. But like Sharon Worship started morphing into that original idea of a church who serves the function of and this Sunday is like my perfect example, like the perfect example. And it's almost like scriptural, and I didn't look up scripture to find it before we started this podcast, but like this Sunday, we left to come start worship at this revival of a church who needed a worship team to lead out in the revival because and so we were here in Missouri City, Texas at Heritage Baptist Church leading worship for their revival. But on Sunday morning, we had another worship team that all from Sharon Church that led worship at our church. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a specific person. There may have been a lead person to kind of lead the practices, but like worship still happened and it was consistent and the same. And that's like so cool to me. Mm-hmm. And that was ultimately like the heart. It's like we have a ministry called Sharon Worship that can travel and go serve in other roles to help build the kingdom and help other churches, put on events or the revivals or whatever they're doing. And yeah, I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts on like just kind of the journey we're on now and, where we're going?
And it's really amazing now if you look at what Sharon Worship is today, as in not being our core group of six people that go and play. Because just like this Sunday, we had 90% of the people on stage at Sharon are not part of the core group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I feel like we're blessed now because of what not Sharon Worship the group, but the worship at Sharon Church is not what we wanted it to be 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Because what we wanted it to be 2 years ago was contemporary worship, like we're at Elevation, and that's what we listen to all the time. And now we see what worship is.
Yeah.
It's not just contemporary, it's not just hymns, but a blended worship service that all of our congregation can get on board with and worship to.
Yeah.
And not worship for us, but worship for God.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're accomplishing that now, and our church is growing with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Growing spiritually, not just, we have a bunch of people coming to Sharon every week. We have families joining consistently, but they're growing spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a whole nother, like, side of this would be, it was never thought of, but even like the production side is like everywhere we go, we, for the most part, not this week particularly, but everywhere we go, usually we bring a sound guy or somebody run words on the screen. Mm-hmm. And so, but besides that, on Sundays, I mean, we're like investing big time in people who serve on production team, run lyrics, run sound, run cameras, and those people, I'm watching them grow and learn like the importance of like just every detail of a worship service. I think that's really cool. People like Jonah Miller, Hayden Britt, Lucas Howard, Michael Crowder, Dustin Ward, Russ Cloud. I could go on and on and on and name these people who help make this ministry, but even just them in and of themselves serving at church on Sundays, like super special. Because I never want this whole shebang of worship, like when it comes to the worship team or worship on Sundays or Wednesdays or traveling, I never want it to be about one person or myself or Kelsey or you, Sean, or anybody, but like all about Jesus. And I mean,
and that's where COVID was a blessing for Sharon Church, because we moved our focus and to what we have to do for our congregants at church. People that can't come, and we started working on our Facebook Live services and working on our production to make those people that can't be here feel like they are.
Right.
And just being able to provide that service for them, the ones that can't be here, the ones that couldn't be here even before COVID, that were stuck at home. And I could name a few people that aren't able to come to Sharon, not because of COVID, but just because of other health reasons or traveling and just can't be here. And that opened up a whole lot more volunteer positions for people in our church to serve.
Yeah.
And I know that's besides Sharon Worship, but it is a part of Sharon Church. And I feel like Sharon Church is where our ministry's going.
Yeah, and I it's only because of God of like where we're at now and how far we've come. Just from, we started this episode serving on Wednesday nights when I couldn't play the guitar for nothing.
Yeah, and the worst vocals.
Yeah, and so, and just to where we're at now, and just seeing how many people we've met, how far we've come, and it's just been really cool. And so just to wrap this episode up, and I know we'll get to do a part 2, hopefully really soon. I think maybe just about worship, or maybe do a Q&A of just like worship questions and
just some experiences would be awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. We could tell that's will be an episode we do, some stories that we've had at these events. Because we just named where they were at, but I could tell some stories on some one events that could last an hour. Just from unloading to loading up and going home. And then, like we mentioned in this episode, sometimes we would load up 3 or 4 hours from home and we'll have $50 a piece.
Hello. Whenever I drove every day to Fayetteville and back.
Yes.
And I literally called my dad and I was like, don't know how I'm going to have gas money, but I'm making it there. And
yes, that's another one. We went all the way to Fayetteville and led a revival during the middle of the week, and you drove up from Conway
every day.
Every day.
Because I didn't want to miss class, but I also didn't want to miss the revival. But I had like a random lady come up to me midweek, hand me some gas money.
Yeah.
Because he had told the crowd that I had been driving, and so she gave me some gas money. But hey, it made me get through the week. that was important.
That was one of my one of special revival we did. When I just look back on the memories, that was a special one. But hey, this was an awesome episode today. Just to wrap up the episode today, we're gonna go around and if we can think about one song, maybe your favorite song right now, what would it be? And go.
A song? Man, that's tough. Because, I mean, right now Maverick City is all our number ones.
Yeah.
And
Sean's just like,
we just picked the whole
Maverick
album.
City.
Maverick City is my favorite every
Is it
day.
favorite song to listen to or favorite song to lead?
Oh, lead. That's two different stories.
You could do both.
Okay. Well, then I got it. Okay. Favorite song to listen to?
Right
Move
now.
Your Heart. Yeah. Move Your Heart. Maverick City. And then favorite song to lead, Promises, Maverick City.
Maverick City.
Man, honestly, this song's been stuck in my head all week long.
Oh, gosh.
Jesus be the center. Oh, it's I don't know what about it. It's been in my head.
Maverick City does that on their Christmas album.
Yes.
With like a Christmas song attached to it. But Jesus Be the Center is a really awesome, simple worship song. And right now, I'm hooked on those big time. My favorite song right now, would have to probably be Ways by Sean Curran. Because I'm never running out of ways to praise you. Like, that's like an anthem to me. Because, like, I'm never going to run out of ways to praise God. But hey, it's been an awesome episode today. Thank y'all for joining us. If you stuck with us through the whole episode, we pray that we have encouraged you in a way and possibly shared some tips and tricks that can help us all continue on this mission of following Jesus, loving others, and reaching the lost.